Hey everybody, so we're going to work on some problems that we have seen recently and just kind of walk through them, see how we would write them, how we would test them out. So the question is basically saying write in a method that finds the first instance of the string inside the string key, inside the string input, and then returns the rest of the string, including the key to the end of the string. It's kind of a lot of mumbo jumbo. You got to read it maybe a couple times to understand. But that basically, if we call the method, so from key to end, if I'm looking for the key in the little short in the string right here, I love the rosary, it would return the rosary because it looks for the first instance of string key and puts a inside of the string input and returns the rest of the string. So again, it's looking for this is the key, and it's looking inside of this input. And so now again, we're going to code it ourselves. So I went ahead and just typed up the method header here and a main method so we can test it. Now, a couple things to keep in mind, and this is how we're going to be writing our methods when we write them by hand to practice for the AP test, especially, is something I call bookend. So now, looking at this method, what are we going to return? What's expected to be returned is a string, right? So what I do is I just go ahead and create basically not a dummy variable, but the variable that we'll use to take whatever calculation is going to be. Now, theoretically, and later on in the video, I'll show you that we can just do this in one line. We could simplify it, but for the time being, I want to go ahead and bookend it, again, I call it, and that way I can, the nice thing about it is that then that way I can go ahead and run it and compile it. So if I build the program, it's going to work. Why? Because I'm returning an answer. Now let's, for example, if I don't do this, if I comment that out and I try to, what's it say? Oh, missing return statement, right? So it's needing that return statement for it to compile. So this is a useful little method, a useful thing to do with methods when you know that this needs to be done, but you don't really care to do this method right now. So, but anyway, we're going to work on it right now. So let's go ahead. So again, I'm going to go from the first instance. Well, looking for the first instance of key inside the string input. Well, how can I find the first instance? What methods do I know? Well, I'm looking for a position that it is, right? So why don't I just go ahead and make another variable? I'll say int, maybe pos for position, okay? And how can I find where the position of the first key is in input? Well, I'll let you think about it for a second. Pause the video if you want to practice. But what I can do is I can look for where that is. At input is the string, and I want to look for the index of the key, okay? And I'll compile it. Okay, everything worked good. Obviously, I'm still not testing it, but what we could do is even, let's go ahead and work on the as I was saying, one thing to do is to test your code, but also kind of maybe just trace it. So we're going to go back over to the problem statement here. So let's take a look at this. Here's the key again. So that's the key right there. Right now, where do we see the in this? Obviously right here. What position is that? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at position 7. 5, 6, 7. Okay. So looking at that line of code, right? So if I did string answer, just to kind of copy my code again. Sometimes it's good to just work it out by hand. And again, that's what we'll need to do on the AP. And then int position. Now the position, again, if I ran it on this sample code, and the AP usually gives you a couple different sample codes. If we did this, what would it give us? Input dot index of. Okay, this would return to us 7. So the current value of position would be 7. Okay. Then I want to return. Now, how can I use that value to get the answer that I need? Well, once we know the position, do we know any methods? Oh, well, I called it just answer over here, but you get the point. The position that this would give me would be 7, and so I can then use what? Substring of the input. So we're just going to set answer into a copy of this string that is input dot substring of the position that we just calculated. Again, you can call it anything you want. You could call it P, just like position because it's short. It kind of gives me a quick name of it. Now let's see if we can't test this code out. So I'll type that in here very quickly. Again, just saying, so answer now is set to the copy of the string that's input dot substring of the newly calculated value, the position. Okay, so we'll compile it. Okay, everything was good. But now, how can we test this to make sure? Well, I can go ahead and just use the sample. Since we know what it would return, we can use that to test it out. So if I do from key to end of the I love the rosary. And now, but if I do this, and did I fall victim to the common newbie mistake of doing what? I didn't print it, or again, this is returning a string. So I could just system.out.print that, or I can just toss it into a little variable in case I want to work with it later. So test case, right? And then all I have to do is print out that test case. And we'll see if it worked. And there it did. It gave us the answer that we wanted. So the next thing I want you to think about is, so that was, again, from where the key was all the way to the rest of the thing. Understanding these problems, reading them through a couple times, making sure you really understand what's going on, what to expect. I just gave you one example in this, but on the AP, you'll give you 5 test cases. And that was kind of nice. It says you may assume the key is found in the input. On the AP, maybe they're not so nice. You have to be able to handle if it's not in there. But again, we're just kind of learning how to write these methods, how to think through a problem, how to use some variables, how to use what methods we've learned and studied to get what we want. So this next method we'll take a look at. Write a method that finds the first instance of the string key inside of the string input and then returns a string from the beginning, from the start of the input to the start of the key. So for example, if the key is pray and the input string is I will pray for you, it's going to look for pray, and it's going to so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 happens to be in the same spot. And so I want to see if I can build that same similar method. I'll leave that to y'all to try it out to see if you can figure that out if you haven't already. And then again, this is the one that we saw most recently. We're just working with Boolean. So if you want to pause it on any of these and try these out, try to work through them by hand, maybe code them up, doing a similar kind of with your test case, writing the method, and then get a little practice. Okay, thank you so much.